everybody. I hope everybody had a really good Christmas and a really good break from work and school. I had an amazing Christmas break, and over the holiday break, I was able to watch Mission Impossible 3, 4, 5, and 6. As I was watching these movies, I couldn't help but take note of all the ways that Ethan Hunt is different from James Bond. Not only that, but all the ways that he is the exact opposite. Ethan Hunt is definitely not the typical secret spy character that I think the majority of people are conditioned to expect. I feel like a lot of decisions made in the Mission Impossible franchise and with this character were intentionally made to be the opposite of James Bond. After I was watching these movies, I was trying to find if there were any videos or articles online that discussed these differences in characters and how they're pretty opposite from one another. But the only thing I could really find was who would win in a fight and who is the better spy between the two characters. In my opinion, I think Mission Impossible and Ethan Hunt definitely are the better spy franchise and better spy character. I think the stunts, the action, the espionage, I think it's all more clever in Mission Impossible than it is in James Bond. And I think that in a fight, Ethan Hunt wins each time. Fight me. But in this video, I don't really want to talk about that. I want to talk about the differences in their character. I want to analyze their characters' stories and their moral compasses and really explore how Ethan Hunt is completely opposite to James Bond, basically the anti-James Bond. The first time that I watched the 7th Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, I remember being really intrigued with the idea of protecting the known and the unknown. This is a sentiment that was stated by the main character, and I thought, what an interesting theme to explore in this movie. Then I went and rewatched all the Mission Impossible movies, well, starting from the 3rd, and realized that this was not a new theme that they were introducing in the 7th movie. It has been the theme for the entire franchise since the 3rd installment. Ethan's main motivation, his main characteristic, is being a protector. In the 3rd, he is made aware that the agent he trained, Lindsay Ferris, has been captured and there is a rescue mission being planned. They want him to join and, well, at first, he hesitates. It's against his nature to refuse protecting someone in need. He joins and is able to break her out, but then is unable to save her from the bomb that ultimately kills her. Here, he failed to protect someone close to him, and we can see the emotional toll that took. Ethan Hunt is an emotional character, which is probably not what most people imagine when they think of super secret spies. This is because being a spy is not the core of Ethan Hunt's character. Being a protector is his core. He cares deeply about his friends and colleagues and does whatever he can to keep them safe. And when he can't, it's a very hurtful and sorrowful experience for him. In the 6th Mission Impossible, Benji and Ethan are on a mission to retrieve the plutonium before Lane's apostles get to it. As they are waiting for the sellers to show up, Benji is obviously anxious and talking about how stressed he is about the mission, and Ethan is very calm and states,
"From a psychic, Benji, I won't let anything happen to you."
From this one scene and throughout the whole franchise, we see that Ethan takes personal responsibility for the safety of those around him. I won't let anything happen to you. Nothing's going to happen or you'll be fine. Ethan will personally see to it that nothing happens to Benji. On that very same mission, he successfully saves Luther from being shot after Luther says not to because that might risk the mission failing. Ethan will hear nothing of that, and after Luther is saved and the plutonium is lost, the CIA blames Ethan for botching the mission in order to save Luther. The secretary of IMF knows that letting Luther die was not something Ethan was capable of doing. And while most people saw that as a weakness, the secretary saw it as a strength and understood why Ethan did it. Again, in the same movie, the secretary is killed in the field, and Ethan's last words to him are,
"I'm sorry, sir."
He again takes responsibility at the end of the movie for all the things that happened when he apologizes to Julia. And his adversaries know this about him. They know that he cares deeply about those around him, and they try to use that to their advantage. In the 5th, Solomon Lane knows that killing that agent in the record shop will affect Ethan greatly, even though Ethan doesn't personally know this agent. Lane again tries to use Ethan's emotions against him by capturing Benji and threatening to kill him. In this movie, we see that Ethan cares deeply about the known and the unknown and wants to protect them both. He is unable to save the unknown, the girl in the record shop, but at the end, he succeeds in outsmarting Lane and protecting the known, Benji. In the 4th, it starts with him in a Russian prison, and an IMF team comes to break him out. Ethan goes out of his way, making the mission a little bit more messy, to save a prison mate, Bogdan. It is explained that Bogdan had given Ethan some helpful information, and if Bogdan stayed behind, he would be in danger. Ethan successfully finds and breaks Bogdan out of prison, telling Bogdan that he takes care of his friends. In the third, he fails to protect Lindsay, but succeeds in protecting Julia. In the fourth, he protects Bogdan and Julia. In the fifth, he fails to protect the agent in the record shop, but he succeeds in protecting Benji and protecting Ilsa. In the sixth, he fails to protect the secretary, but succeeds in protecting Luther and Walker, who he did not know was John Lark at the time. And while undercover as Lark, he also succeeded in saving many policemen's lives by intentionally changing the plans that the bad guys had. He also saved a policewoman, helping her to call her comrades after being shot. In all of these movies, Ethan's main motivation is to protect. Compare that character to James Bond, a man who does not seem to care about the women that are killed after he involves them in his life. The structure of the James Bond story does not allow him to be a good moral character that can care deeply about those around him. There is meant to be a new woman each time who inevitably gets killed to motivate James Bond to succeed and to take down the bad guy. And then James Bond just moves on to the next one. If Bond cared about the lives of others, he would not keep involving them in his life, as he knows they will inevitably die. Yet he continues to do so, and they continue to die, and he continues to not take any responsibility. And in the movies, his main motivation is not to protect others. He seems very motivated to kill. He is a killer. While Ethan Hunt only kills in defense of others, James Bond is not characterized in that same way. In the matter of caring for people and their safety, Hunt and Bond are complete opposites. Ethan Hunt is a protector, and Bond is a killer. Quick side note, with this theme of Ethan being a protector, I do not believe that Ilsa will be dead in the next movie. I already made a whole video about this, so bear with me. Her being dead will ruin everything that they had set up in the last three movies. It will also be an incredible failure on Ethan's end. What kind of story sets up the character as a protector and then shows him to fail at protecting in such a massive way? It's not a good way to raise the stakes, as some people have said. It just ruins the story and completely fails the theme and character that they have been setting up throughout the whole franchise. Anyway, another major difference between these two characters is their sense of duty. In the third, Ethan Hunt had left the IMF. He met Julia, was going to marry her, and wanted out of the secret agent life. In the fourth, we learn that he was able to successfully live a normal life for a few short years with his wife. But while he was busy protecting her, he felt guilty for all the horrible events he witnessed in the world, tragic events that perhaps he could have prevented. He knew it was his duty to protect his wife, but he also felt that it was his duty to protect the world. After his wife was captured and Ethan successfully got her back, they realized that this way of life could not work for either of them. They successfully faked her death, gave her a new life, and Ethan was able to then return to the field, after being broken out of prison, to continue protecting the world, and while at the same time protecting Julia. Ethan tried to get out of the game. He tried to leave the field, to live a normal life, but he couldn't do it. His sense of duty to protect was too strong. While he tries to do what he knows is right, Ethan has been betrayed and cast aside by the IMF and the government multiple times. They consider him a rogue agent, dangerous, and doubt his judgment and character, basically in every single movie. While in the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, we are led to believe that Ethan might be questioning his loyalty to the IMF. That is never what Ethan is concerned about. The IMF disavows him and the government turns against him, yet he completes the mission and then all charges are dropped after his innocence is proven, and then Ethan accepts the next mission from the IMF. The story and other characters would have us believe that Ethan will turn against the IMF because of their treatment towards him. But this is not Ethan's concern. He doesn't even address the issue. He accepts his next mission from them and does everything he possibly can to accomplish the missions and protect. Not only has the IMF turned their backs on him, his close friends have also questioned his character. In the third one, Luther asks him if he had been romantically involved with Lindsay Ferris. While Luther thinks this is a serious question that needs asking, Ethan is confused and shocked that Luther had even thought to ask that. In the fifth, Brandt accuses him of being too focused on a petty competition with Lane, stating that that is why Ethan wants to continue with the dangerous missions. Once again, Ethan is shocked that Brandt thinks that this is what this is all about. While others try to paint Ethan as a questionable character with ulterior motives, Ethan does not let that bother him or deter him from the mission. His moral compass is set right, and he will do whatever it takes to succeed in the mission. James Bond, however, does not have the same sense of duty. The IMF really does not treat Ethan fairly, and they make the missions harder for him when they disavow him. Yet, he does not do what he does because the IMF tells him to or not. He does it because it's his responsibility. In one of the Daniel Craig movies, Bond is shot and believed to be killed in action. He is not, however, but does not feel the need to return. With MI6 believing that he is dead, he takes this opportunity to live a free life. Bond would take himself out of the game without a second thought. He is not in the field because of a sense of duty. He's there because... I actually have no idea. Okay, that's not entirely true. I asked my dad this question, and he said the earlier versions of James Bond were there because of a sense of duty to serve his country, which I can get behind. The Bond that I am most familiar with, though, is Daniel Craig's version, and even my dad admits that this version of James Bond didn't really have that sense of duty to country. It was explained in his version that he was an orphan and had no real purpose and was kind of just lost, and MI6 took him in and gave him a purpose and a mission in life or whatever, which is pretty dumb in my opinion. Perhaps the earlier James Bond character was not as egregious as this one. Perhaps. But the most recent version of the Bond character seems to not have much of a strong desire to serve their country. In Skyfall, he even uses his presumed death as his chance to retire and leave the field. He does come back, but only when he deems it absolutely necessary. Perhaps this character does have a sense of duty, but in the movies that I have seen, it does not feel very strong, and it is not made to be his main characteristic. It's not the focus, which is a shame. The characteristics that are focused on are, he's a spy, he's a killer, and he leaves a trail of murdered women behind him. Another thing that is very different between these two characters, the relationships with others. All fans of James Bond, and even people that aren't fans of James Bond, know about the Bond girls, which is just completely disgusting and gross. Ethan could not be more opposite than Bond with his romantic relationships. I absolutely love that they did not kill his wife, Julia. Thanks to James Bond, killing the love interest is just an accepted part of the super spy formula. The main character's life is too dangerous, and the love interest is going to be a target for the bad guys, so clearly they must die. And I love that the Mission Impossible franchise did the exact opposite. Mission Impossible decidedly rejected this formula and showed that you don't actually have to kill the love interest for the story to go on. They did trick you for a bit in the fourth one, leading you to believe that she did die and Ethan was unable to protect her. But we find out at the very end that that was not the case. And this isn't following that same James Bond formula. Julia was not just some forgettable character that would be cast aside at the end, Ethan unable to save her. She is captured and he saves her. And she is able to continue living a good life. She is the opposite of a Bond girl.
I am a survivor.
They do have to part ways in Mission Impossible, but she does not die. And they still very much care for each other, and Ethan is still protecting her. And I love that they bring her back in the 6th movie to show us that she is alive, well, and very happy. James Bond is incapable of keeping women out of his life, even though it would save them. Ethan is able to let his wife go in order to save her. Another thing that is very different is the type of women that these two characters fall in love with. James Bond relationships are incredibly shallow and based only off of physical attraction, and there are many Bond girls. Ethan is only serious about 2 women, and the 2 women are very good people. Julia is a nurse and dedicates her life to helping others. Ilsa is another agent that has dedicated her skills to protecting others, just like Ethan. Bond's relationships are gross and short-lived. Both relationships that we see of Ethan's are very meaningful and sincere. Aside from romantic relationships, Ethan has friendships with his colleagues. Benji and Luther are his good friends, and they return in every movie since the 3rd. Bond does not have friends. He is a loner. While there are returning characters that he works with throughout the movies, they are not his friends, and he does not care for them the same way that Ethan cares for his team. Ethan tried to be a loner in the 5th movie in order to protect his friends, but that didn't work as his friends also cared about Ethan and wanted to help him. The last thing that I want to talk about is the moral compass that we see in each character. Ethan Hunt's moral compass is always pointing north. He knows what is right and he does it. To him, doing good is not a question, it is the only way. He gets confused when Brandt accuses him of viewing the mission as a competition. Ethan had never viewed it that way. He just views the mission, taking down the bad guy, as the right thing to do in order to protect people. And he doesn't get it when others don't view it that way. Ilsa, who is another amazing agent, wanted to run away from the mission with Ethan. Ethan, even though he really cared for Ilsa, did not even consider that as an option. No matter how many times he is disavowed and betrayed by the IMF and his government, he does not consider leaving. The only reason he did leave the field, temporarily, was to protect his wife. Ethan knows what is right and does not consider any other paths even as an option. Bond does not care about what is right. His character's moral compass is not set straight. He doesn't care about the women that die as a result of his actions. He doesn't seem to care much for human life at all. He is just a spy that is given fetch quests to complete from an organization that he doesn't feel loyal to. In conclusion, Ethan Hunt and James Bond are opposite in almost every way. The Mission Impossible franchise shows that you don't have to follow the Bond structure, and when you don't, the story and characters can be so much better. Ethan Hunt is a great character and hero. Along with having amazing skills in the field, he is good, caring, and protective. He is truly the greatest spy character ever written. So those are my thoughts and opinions on this subject, but let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you agree or disagree with anything that I've said. Welcome to all my new subscribers, and excited to talk about more movies with you guys.